Yes, both Michigan and Michigan State are unranked, but the stakes are still high for each team on Saturday. And oh my goodness gracious, Cam Ward, 4-star out of the DMV area, commits to Michigan State basketball. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week as we build up to another Paul Bunyan game. This one is out of nowhere. Got a lot of juice on it. If you missed our conversation yesterday with Chase Glasser, who does fantastic work for Spartans Illustrated, also a Michigan grad. But you know what? I'm sure you might, if you didn't hear the conversation, be thinking, oh, it's great, just probably excuses, probably delusion. Oh, no. That was straight talk from Chase Glasser about his football team. He is feeling very good about Michigan State's chances. Give that a listen after this episode. Guys, for this episode, we are going to talk about what the stakes are for this game on Saturday, right? But first, please rate, review, subscribe. Reach out to us at lockedonspartans@gmail.com for any mailbag questions. We're going to get to those later in the show. But let's talk stakes, baby. That's right, because, look, at point blank, this could be the biggest win of the season for either team when it's all said and done. Right? For Michigan State, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that, yeah, this is our reality, that a win over Michigan, no matter how down they are, still your top game of the year. Could it be against Indiana next week? Perhaps, but stay with me here. For Michigan, whether they want to actually admit it or not, whether they want to look at it through the lens of reality, yeah, the USC game was a lot of fun for them, I'm sure, but they're in the basement with UCLA and Purdue right now. That is not a good Trojan team whatsoever. And I know they like to do the whole cute, oh, you're not really a rival. Yeah, I got a hard time believing that, just based on how hard they celebrated last year's win against our substitute teacher. We know how much this game means to both parties. No disrespect, I don't see the Oregon-Ohio State game being a win, but it goes, far beyond just, hey, how good you feel at the end of the year banquet when you're looking back at the highlights of the season. Now, there are legitimate, big picture stakes here, too, in this game. Again, despite this not being a ranked game, shoved away in the corner on Big Ten Network at 7:30 p.m. But, man, guys, we're actually going to start with the school down the road. And I know this is Locked On Spartans here, but allow me to try to awkwardly fit into a Michigan fan's shoes right now, because this would be the worst loss for Michigan since this is where not being a Michigan fan hurts, because I'm not a Michigan football fan historian. What I do know is, and I'm going to give them credit here, they've been good the last few years, so there's not a lot of bad losses in the last few seasons for them, right? I mean, the college football playoff loss to TCU, no shame in losing in the college football playoff, right? Losing to Ohio State, no shame in that. The 2021 MSU game, that was a really good MSU team. There's no shame in that. And, of course, they went on to go to a very legitimate college football playoff berth. No outside help whatsoever. But, look, it has been some time. And also, it's not because Michigan State is just this bad of a team where if they lose to the Spartans, that's where all the embarrassment lies. No, it goes to where they were last year, how wide this gap is. Because, guys, just like I just said, just like you've been told numerous times over the last few months of the offseason, MSU lost that game 49-0 last year. All right, the gap between the two programs, one winning a national title, the other one at the absolute basement, at least in my lifetime, probably yours too, the gap's as wide as the Pacific Ocean. All right, they're chilling at a beachside mansion in Malibu, and us Spartan fans, guys, the program was on a remote island somewhere outside of Guam, and all that we had was a broken fishing spear, and there was a hurricane coming. Horribly wide gap between these two programs. I can't think of a wider gap, actually, between two programs. And don't tell me it's not important to have this gap, too, for Michigan. I mean, look, going into that 2021 game, MSU won 10 of 14 games in this matchup. That's clearly a thorn in their side. The tide turned greatly the last 2 years. They've made great progress, leaps and bounds progress in this rivalry. For it all not to just be, shortened a little bit, but to just vanish like that in year one, just all the continents of this gap reforming into a Pangea. Oh, God, that'd be a horrible loss for them. There's no way to paint that picture. You are that far away from each other. 49-0 could have been, should have been a lot worse in my opinion. They could have won that game 79-0 if they wanted to. To have it just 1 year vanish like that, that would be a horrendous loss for Michigan. Now let's jump into the mailbag here before we flip things to Michigan State and what it would mean for them, because Darren writes in, what would you say the odds are Michigan misses a bowl game? If we beat them, next week they still have to play Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, who I am finally having to admit is good. If they lose all those, and that's 7 losses on the season, that's the other thing too, is that yes, they have Northwestern game in there, but if they lose to Michigan State, those other 3 games that Darren just rattled off, Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, that's a 5-7 season. Like, that is a loss to Michigan State that nearly puts the nail in the coffin on bowl eligibility 1 year removed from a national title. And that's an interesting dialogue that we could all have. Oh, the grave dance I'd be having on top of that one would be out of control. But let's talk about Michigan State here, because what does it mean for our Spartans, guys? Well, obviously it closes the gap. Okay, and I know that this game's tucked away, Big Ten Network. Maybe outside of regionally, this doesn't really matter in the landscape of college football. It certainly matters to both fan bases, but also just regionally, there are going to be eyes on this game. And for a Jonathan Smith coaching staff that is largely from the West Coast, they're trying to make grassroots in the Midwest. What better statement can you make than going on the road in Ann Arbor, 1 year off a national title, and beating them with your 19-year-old quarterback against their quarterback who should be 4 years into the workforce in Jack Tuttle, if he's the starter. Who knows who's going to start over there? That would be a statement that would ring across just the region. I know it's just the region, but it's important for Jonathan Smith to make inroads here this early on. Bigger picture, though, it gets you on the second tier of the Big Ten. Like, never mind the gap closing between Michigan and Michigan State. Like, that is a seismic shift right there, just in the inner workings of the rivalry right there. But Michigan State started this year in the basement of the Big Ten. I don't think that's out of line whatsoever to say. Back-to-back bowl list seasons, a lot of turmoil last year. Don't know if any of you guys remember that. And, well, you know what? You had to start over, get a lot of new faces in your program. This was a basement-dwelling Big Ten team. A rebuild was ahead. If you win this game, you're not just 5-3, you're 1 win away from making a bowl game, but you're also clumped in that large group of Big Ten teams that are also in that second tier, because the way I see it, guys, your tier 1 teams in the Big Ten, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State. I don't think there's much argument there. Maybe you could even add Indiana if you want. But the tier 2 teams, I mean, there's so much parity in here with your Nebraskas, your Iowas, your Michigans. I just name pretty much any team. You are squarely on that tier, and if you even want to break it up into 2 different tiers, like even move Michigan down to tier 3 if they lose this game, or move Maryland down to tier 3, I will completely understand it, but you are already on tier 2, basement to tier 2. You're out of the basement with your UCLAs, your Purdue's of the world, your USC's, because, well, yeah, it was a tough week stretch with Oregon and Ohio State, but against all the other competitive teams in the Big Ten, like your Michigans if you win this game, like the Iowas if you win this game, especially the way you beat Iowa last week. Never punting. No one does that to Phil Parker's defense at Iowa. It is not just being too much of a State fan or being too much of a blowhard to say that. No, you are already at the second tier, just 1 year. And that's how much rest on this game right now, guys. We are going to get to more of this talk, of course, but hey, we got to talk about this new basketball recruit that we just landed, Cam Ward. But of course, first, guys, you need to talk your ears off about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to go check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster, and my favorite part, for free. Now, LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but could be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, point blank, you are just not looking in the right place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional, all on LinkedIn. Join the 2.5 million small businesses that use LinkedIn for their hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, got that right, they apply. All right, let's get back into the mix here. We're going to go to the basketball court, though, because, hey, Michigan State 2025 recruiting. They just added their second kid to the class, Cam Ward. That's right, folks. 6'7", 210-pounder from Upper Marlboro, Maryland. That is the second kid that Michigan State has nabbed over Maryland. Also, they beat Virginia and Kansas State, were the other two schools that rounded out Cam Ward's Final Four. Now, he was the Maryland Gatorade Player of the Year last season. The 24/7 Sports Composite has him ranked as the 50th ranked prospect overall in the class and the number 11 ranked power forward in the country. Now, what is to like about this kid? Certainly, this is what Tom Izzo wants to go back to. Physicality, defense, length. He's talked about it this offseason, even just in the transfer portal while getting Frankie Fiddler saying, we need a big wing. And if you look at rosters that are, coming up after this season, they need some length on the perimeter, guys, right? And yes, he is a power forward, but he's kind of that tweener, like he can play 3, can play 4. But this is what you like about his game. He is physical. Like, he does not shy away from contact whatsoever. He could bang it low in the post. He can drive a little bit. Certainly not one of these, like, soft AAU types that are so, like, just stereotypes now these days. Like, no, this kid is just a travel back in time of good physical basketball. He offers defense. He offers rebounding. And what's really helping that defense, too, yes, stands at 6'7". His wingspan, 6'11". Rangy kid. Like this is what you want guarding your perimeter if you are Michigan State. And just at 210 pounds too, he does have room to add a little bit of muscle like many prospects in high school do, of course, guys. So, like, he's a 4-man. Maybe he's a 3-man, could be a power forward. But, man, just when I say out loud, 6'7" power forward, I mean, God, we're going back almost a decade now. This makes me an old guy, so I'm sorry if you guys are younger than me and don't know Brandon Dawson, but that's kind of who I go to. He was just 6'7"-ish, and he made hay a power forward, but he's not an exact clone like Brandon Dawson. They do have some similarities. Good inside game, not really a shooter, at least yet in Cam Ward's career. We'll see if that gets any progress throughout his 4 years at MSU. But just like Brandon Dawson, a strong defender, really strong rebounder, and here's what's not like Dawson, and no disrespect to Brandon Dawson. He's one of my all-time favorite Spartans, but dribbling was never really his forte, right? Cam Ward, when you're seeing him, highlight tapes, AAU tapes, whatever it is, some comfortability with dribbling the ball, which, you like to see because that's just not a given with prospects out of high school, especially ones that play the 4. So it's a solid get for Michigan State. Again, you beat Maryland for him. You beat Kansas State and also Virginia. Which, like, in the wake of Tony Bennett's retirement, he said he doesn't like the direction basketball is going in. And, of course, the timing with that retirement is odd, but maybe it was just his way of strong-arming Virginia into getting his assistant the head coaching job. But, like, part of me did wonder, like, because all the smoke last week was blowing that Cam Ward's going to go to Michigan State last week. Like, was Cam Ward picking Michigan State just like the straw that broke Tony Bennett's back? I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I would be lying if I said that thought didn't cross my mind. Like, did he just say, oh my God, I can't do anything anymore in college basketball. I can't even win Virginia area recruits anymore. And so, just keep an eye on that. I don't know. Just join that fantasy world with me if you think that's a little out there. But anyway, guys, let's talk about the class right now. It's a 2-man class for Michigan State 2025, joining Jordan Scott. Now, you do have room for 2 more right now. This will bring Michigan State up to 11 scholarship players the following season. That's barring any transfers, of course. You know how it goes in college basketball. But, hey, right now, even just with 2 kids, you have the number 3 class for 2025 in the Big Ten. In the Big Ten overall. Nationally, you're just inside the top 20, but in the Big Ten, you have the number 3 ranked class. Now, class, would you like to guess the 2 teams that are above Michigan State for 2025 basketball recruiting right now? Now, of course, you guys got it. It's, of course, Rutgers. And then certainly the number 2 team is Northwestern. What a bizarro world that we're in right now. But, yes, both Rutgers and Northwestern, they have 4 guys in their class. That helps their rankings a little bit. But, yeah, Michigan State, strong class as anyone right now. So that's looking pretty sharp. Now, guys, we're going to talk recruiting. Going to jump into the mailbag. We're going to switch it up for this first question here because we're going to go back to the football field. PGH. Now, a lot of these questions are going to, go right back to the MSU Michigan game this upcoming Saturday. PGH writes in, with the Spartans already trying to flip Dotson from Pitt. That's a safety committed to Pitt, 4-star, number 2 ranked kid in the state of Michigan. He was here last week against Iowa for an unofficial visit. Now he will be taking an official visit to Michigan State in the future. Little recruiting nugget right there. Anyway, back to the question. Is there any way with the win at Michigan, could they start to do the same with Strayhorn? Now, Caden Strayhorn, of course, son of Jason Strayhorn, Michigan State football legend, voice of the Spartans, of course. He picked Michigan. That was a whole to-do in the offseason. I don't know if you guys caught wind of that. If you didn't, congratulations. You live a happy life that isn't neck deep in the world of this rivalry and recruiting. But yes, that is the story right there. 3-star interior offensive lineman. Didn't pick State because, well, State was never really pursuing him. I think there was one phone call made between this new staff and him, and that's that. So, no, I'm just going to jump on it right now. I don't think that there's anything. I don't know if anyone on either side is picking up the phone for each other. Should Michigan State beat Michigan? Now, I also saw in this little Twitter thread here, Avery Gatch's name being thrown in too. Now, Avery Gatch, his dad played at Michigan State, another legacy recruit, lineman. This one's a 4-star that picked Michigan. Do not hold your breath for him either. Even if Michigan State beats Michigan, I don't think, from the people that I've talked to, there's not a lot of communication, if any, between Gatch, the staff, Strayhorn, and the staff, or even Bobby Kanka. Now, he actually officially visited Michigan State in June, defensive lineman from Howell, who's currently committed to Michigan. There's no communication there either. So I don't think a win would flip any Michigan commits, but look, just like we talked earlier this show, that's not to say that that's not going to, perk up the eyebrows of recruits in 2026, 27, just knowing that just like that, you've already closed the gap. And, well, you have an adult coaching staff that can develop players and actually, guide a team through what could be adversity-filled season. Well, the other one, well, you see how that's going. All right, guys. So, you know what? Sorry, I was going to cut it to a break. We'll have room for one more question before getting to a lot of other questions. This one was from a YouTube comment after the Iowa game. This one is from Lyle. Got a fun talking point for you, Matt. At this point in the season, which do you think is more likely? MSU wins every one of their remaining games, or Michigan loses all of their remaining games? I think it's MSU winning their remaining games is more likely. In no way, shape, or form, listen to me now, everyone, am I predicting that. I know we had a lot of fun after that Iowa game, right, guys? That's as good as MSU has looked, since 2021. Easily. Indiana also looks really good, right? So, let's say, you do beat Michigan. You only have one massive upset remaining. It's Indiana. Their quarterback is hurt. It is at Spartan Stadium, but it still would be an upset. But after that, you got to go on the road to Illinois. Still a tough game, but certainly gettable. And then Purdue, certainly gettable. And then Rutgers. So, you're looking for one massive upset. Whereas Michigan, the only upset would be a Northwestern upset over Michigan. And if the Wildcats do that, if Michigan's morale is so low after the season, if they have that many opt-outs, should Michigan State win this game, if they're not already happening, they have Oregon, Indiana, on the road too in Bloomington, and Ohio State. So the last 4 games after this matchup Saturday, I could see Michigan State winning all 4 much more easily than I could see Michigan. No, I'm sorry, I got that back. I see Michigan losing all 4 of those games pretty well. So what a delightful scenario that would be. So I think Michigan beats Northwestern. So I'm going to go with Michigan State winning all their games being the more likely outcome. All right, guys, we are going to be back here in a hot second. More mailbag questions, including what sparks the hate in me the most about this rivalry? But first, you need to talk your ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. In the offseason, FanDuel had this look-ahead line for Michigan State versus Michigan. It was 24 points. Michigan was favored by 24 points, and by golly gee willikers, why wouldn't they? They were just off a national title. Michigan State's in year 1 of a rebuild. It should be that much. Guys, right now, that line, as things stand, all the way down to 5.5 on FanDuel. Our Spartans are still underdogs, but if you like the trajectory of both teams and you want Michigan State plus the points, Grab that action right now on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And you know what, guys? Hey, no matter what happens Saturday, Sunday, they got us for NFL season because NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, FanDuel.com. All right, let's continue this hate week mailbag. So many of you guys wrote great questions. Thank you all very much for that. And Maddie writes in the question we're going to start this segment with. She's always got great questions. Thank you very much. What is the moment your hate for Michigan peaked? And guys, this might surprise you. I'm actually not going to go with anything on the football field or the basketball court because point blank, it's just kind of like, micro moments that happen. It's every time a story breaks from their end, or just the silence of their media, or just how they're covered around here, right? You'll wonder how they just got so arrogant and pompous and act like they're above it all. You wonder how that happens. Well, it's how they're covered. Of course, it's how they're treated by the media around here. I'm not going out of bounds with that whatsoever. It's like the rich, spoiled kid that never got in trouble. Well, because their parents, they always skirted around the issue, or they just, paid whatever problem it was off. Of course, our sweet little child can't do any wrong. No, of course, that program down there can't do any wrong. No, we're not going to push on the whole Schembechler thing. No, we're not going to ask what happened with Mozzie Smith whatsoever. We're not even going to dig around and uncover that story. No, not us, the Detroit media, because, well, if you look up every scandal that's been uncovered, and there's been no shortage of those here in the last few years, they all come from either national media outlets or kids from the Michigan Daily, the Michigan student newspaper, because, well, yeah, they're trying to make a name for themselves by actually, doing their jobs, actually investigating. So if you ask any professionals around here that actually cover that beat, good luck finding any breaking news stories that has them in any way of a negative light. Not happening around here. No one following up on the Matt Weiss thing. Guy had unmarked authority cars outside of his house for computer crimes. Any update on that? Because that could mean anything. That could be a slippery slope. Do we want to clear any of that up? Do we want to pick and prod around that? Oh, no, we don't. Oh, okay, that's right, because it's Michigan, and we just sweep everything under the rug for those guys. Or, nothing further on the Mozzie Smith situation. That story was unfolded nearly a month after everything happened. If that happened in East Lansing, my God, they would have beat the player to the police station. That would have just been instantaneous coverage. Are you out of your mind? Or, just like I just brought up, they happily skip into Schembechler Hall, but never opine as to, isn't it kind of weird that this building is named after a guy that enabled a team doctor that allegedly did horrendous things to his players? Nothing about that. Nothing about that, because it is state-run media over there. A few years ago, LJ Scott got a traffic ticket in East Lansing. That was literally on the front page of the Detroit News Sports section. All right? You can go back in the archives and look it up. And you know what? How about this? Just their framing of last year's choice for Michigan State to play the game. Michigan, they're embroiled in this huge cheating scandal where they get a massive advantage. And no, that's not just me, Mr. Green and White, saying that. Go to the Athletic article. They asked 50 personnel, coaches, does this give them a substantial advantage? It was over 90% yes. It was a substantial advantage. So the Big Ten, they asked Michigan State, hey, guys, do you still want to play this game? And Michigan State said, oh, well, yeah, of course we do. Of course the headlines and the way it was framed was, oh, Michigan State was thinking of dodging this game. Oh, they huddled together and they wanted to bow out. It's like, nope, not how the story happened. So whether it was covered or the way that, people read stories over there, yeah, that's just kind of where it gets me going. It's just how everything is framed. So it's not the actions. It's seeing how these actions have happened. They are coddled. They are given propaganda by state-run media over there. There's no one pushing these coaches or the administrators whatsoever. There's not. Not unless someone from a national media outlet decides to take a trip on down for their last visit before they get their press credentials revoked. Or, you know what? A kid that's going to be graduating next year anyway, so I might as well swing for the fences and uncover the Brandon Gibbons story back in 2012. Like, no, like, of course it's not anyone that actually gets paid to do investigational work that's actually doing all this. No, guys. So, Maddie, great question. It's great. No, it's not like the cringe stuff, like the stuff that happens on the field, like Devin Bush's meltdown on Spartan Stadium's field a few years ago. I thought that was just very toddlerish and weird. Braylon Edwards going after Xavier Henderson on whatever show he does these days. That was strange, going after a college kid. Even Mike Hart's little brother comment, I know that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. For one, I don't hate that moment whatsoever, because look how it's been going since. Like, that was a battle cry for Michigan State right after that. So I didn't even hate that moment. When he said it, sure, how could it not rub you the wrong way? But hey, look at the 15 years that followed. I'd say thank you, Mr. Hart. I really do appreciate that. So, yeah, great question. Oh, man, the hate week blood is boiling in me right now. So, yeah, no, it's just a complete lack of accountability is the word they use, at least around here in East Lansing when things happen. All right, Brian writes in, do you think that this team is going into the game this Saturday? Sorry, let me start over again. Do you think the team going into the game this Saturday might be too cocky, confident after the Iowa win, or do you think the team knows what's on the line and is going to be fine? They're going to be fine. I'll just get right after right now. Last week's win should give them confidence with the capital C. They manhandled Iowa. It was not even that close of a game than what it read on the scoreboard, guys. And look, if that was the third game of the season, like if they played, FAU, Maryland, and then Iowa, and then looked like that going into the Michigan game, I might think that they could be a little cocky. But guys, those Oregon and Ohio State games did happen. That Boston College game also happened. This team got humbled before the bye week. That one win over Iowa, in no world do I see just skewing all of that, erasing just the lessons they learned in those games. They know that they got to bring their A game, right? So that's where I'm at right now. But let's also dive into the past of Jonathan Smith's big wins at Oregon State and how he's followed those up too. All right, because back in 2021, that was, I think, 2 or 3 years into his rebuild. Nevertheless, gunning for a 500 season, similar to where Michigan State is right now. And in that season, well, they got a win at USC. And sure, like not, Reggie Bush's or Matt Leinert's USC teams, but anytime you go and beat USC, that's a big win, especially for Oregon State. The very next week, win against Washington. Just a great bounce-back performance for the Beavers. All right, 2022, 1-point win at Stanford, and then a win over Washington State the next week. All right, so an emotional road win against the Cardinal. They come back. Washington State take care of them. No problem at all. 2023, even last year, they get a win over number 10 Utah at home. They have to hit the road the very following week. No bye week at all. And they win 52-40 at Cal. All right, now it's not a perfect science because they did lose at Arizona off a bye week last year after beating number 18 UCLA. That's college football. It's never going to be a perfect, after a big win thing. But Jonathan Smith has shown in his past that he can get his guys' heads in the right spots after really nice wins. So I like where Michigan State's at mentally right here. I love where Michigan has to be mentally right now. We're going to get into that a little more on our Friday show, but you can't quantify it with any stats, with any Pro Football Focus numbers, with any X's and O's, but the morale and the mentality in each of these locker rooms, I think, has got to play a role in this game. Again, we're going to elaborate way more on this on Friday, but we've all been on teams where the season is not going well. I don't care if you've played college. I don't care if you played D3. I don't care if you've only played JV baseball in high school. If you've been part of a team and you've seen things go bad, it can kind of spiral. You know that you can show up to the field and just not be feeling it. Or on the contrary, you could be on a team that, we just did something really good. We're starting to feel good about ourselves. We have battled through adversity moments here. And that's where Michigan State's at right now. That is going to be a thing this upcoming weekend. We're going to get to the last mailbag question here, and Cole, get ready for this one because Zach, our friend Zach, is in a pickle right now, guys. He writes in, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. My friend is getting married this Saturday night at the same time as the Michigan State game. I can count on one hand the number of times I've missed a Michigan State game in the last 15 years, and to miss this rivalry game in particular makes it even worse. So, as any sane person, I'm going to watch the game on my phone during the wedding. I know you mentioned you were at a wedding for the Iowa game last weekend. Do you have any advice on how to watch the game while also pretending to be enjoying the wedding? It is a blessing that we can stream a lot of games on our phone, right? Get out to the dance floor, move a little bit, pull the phone out of the pocket, watch it play, put it right back in, okay? If you are bringing a wedding date, like I was with my lovely wife last week, I set the precedent early. This might be a little too late for you over there, Zach, but I talked about, hey, I'm going to watch this game here and there during the wedding. Don't say you're going to, just completely ignore them. That way they expect it. They're not going to be surprised by it. That's one thing we can do. Always keep the phone in your pocket. Just pull it out time and time again. And for speeches, and I did this too, for the most of them, put the phone down. Like, just face it down. I know it's going to suck, but hey, you know what? Just do it. Now, when I picked it up last week, that's when my phone was blowing up about Noah Eagle giving us the shout out. That was a great memory. But if you're going to keep it down, just do it during speeches. Then yeah, open season after that. Now, my other piece of advice, and this is why we're answering this on Wednesday's show, not Friday's show, because this is going to take some prep, if you will, some labor on your end, Zach. And this isn't nice. Like, we're going to need you to do some photoshopping. We're going to need you to find pictures of the couple or just one of the parties and Photoshop them like a online dating profile, like Hinge or Tinder, maybe both. And then you got to reach out to the friend, whether it's the Mr. or the Mrs. here, and you got to send like, hey, is this the person you're marrying this weekend on Tinder or Hinge? You open that up on Wednesday or Thursday. That gets you at least 2 or 3 days for this wedding to be canceled. It's not kosher whatsoever. This is not a nice thing to do. You might as well not ruin their lives, but certainly ruin the relationship between you and that couple. But if you feel good about Michigan State and you want to see if MSU can close the gap from last year in just one season, that's my best piece of advice right there. God, I'm a terrible person. All right, guys, we will be back on tomorrow's show. We got Chris Castellani coming up. Of course, you guys already know who that guy is. And then Friday, we'll leave you final thoughts going into the game. But until then, Zach, sorry about that whole situation got going on. That is not fun. I love every single one of you. Guys, take care of yourselves. Let's go. Go Green.